All right. So, welcome to how to finally, finally finish and publish your book. Our deepest intentions for you, sisters, is that you feel supported in your entire journey of visioning, crafting, creating, publishing, and launching your future book. And a moment ago, we were also talking about if you've already published books that you received support to maybe get those book babies that have already been born maybe out into the world in a different way or a new way or a bigger way. So thank you, sisters, for resourcing yourself and just by being here today. I really believe that just by gathering, we are receiving kind of by osmosis, just a lot of juicy wisdom, not only from the panelists, but from this whole collective of women who've gathered here today, who have stories to tell, who have wisdom to speak out into the world. You are all wisdom keepers, and I thank you for being here. So thank you for resourcing yourself today. Um, and our hope is that you receive more of the wisdom that you need to birth your book out into the world so that you can touch hearts and change lives. So I'm Jessica. I'm the organizer of this series and also the Women Light Leaders Network, which has been a sanctuary of networking and wisdom sharing and community for nearly 20 years. And I truly believe that collaboration and women sharing wisdom makes it easier for us all to rise and to build what we came here to create. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to absolutely talk about how to finish your book. How do you, our tips for turning all your work, your creativity, your ideas into a finished book, a beautiful piece of art. We'll also dive into the minutia of like, what do you look for in team members and an editor, a cover designer? Like, who might you need to think about hiring if you've never been through that process before? And these amazing women authors will also talk about traditional publishing versus self publishing and their perspectives so that you can maybe more easily discern what path is right for you. And we're also going to dive into PR and the world of how do you get your books out to TV, to media, to radio, to podcasts? How do you get your books out to the masses? And we'll talk about the ingredients of launching as well. And then we'll also be diving into how you can actually make money with your book. So that's going to be a really important rabbit hole that I'm really excited to dive into today. So thank you all so much for being here. What I'm going to have you do, panelists, is each of you just take a minute to introduce yourself. So just a quickie minute to share how you support writers or how you are in support here today. And then you can go ahead and paste, panelists, you can go ahead and paste your contact information or any links in the chat. So audience, feel free to save the chat or copy paste because each of these incredible women is a wonderful resource, probably for some amazing area of your life. So let's go ahead and start with Jean. Feel free to introduce yourself and let us know how we can connect with you.
Hi there. Can you all hear me? Excellent. A good start. Hi, I'm Jean Sullivan-Vallecci. I'm the soulmate coach. I am a dating and relationship coach and author of Be the Soulmate You Want to Attract, Step into Your Sovereignty and Magnetize a Higher Love. I support writers in an unusual way. I host writers communities, writers meetups, online and in person. And it's part of a group called Shut Up and Write, no critiques, just writing and community. And it helps people to really show up for themselves and the page, especially when they have self-doubt. So that's how I'm showing up today, is to help people find other ways that they can show up for themselves and have the courage to promote themselves.
Amazing, Jean. So glad that you're here. And Jean is chiming in from Ireland today. Just take a moment to send Jean some love. Love, love, Jean. We love you. Wonderful. Britt, you have actually been a panelist in some of our series in the past, so it's so great to have you back. Britt, feel free to introduce yourself and let the, oh, I see that you already put your information in the chat, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. I love your community, you know that. So my name is Britt Bolnick. I am the founder of Pity Posse Rescue, which is a pit bull-based dog rescue. I am the owner of a brand new doggy daycare and training facility here in Maine called the Barkyard. And I've gone from food stamps, homelessness, and single motherhood to 15 years of a six-figure income working less than 30 hours a week. For those 15 years, I mentored women just like the women who are here today, transformational leaders, change makers, other women, teaching a foolproof system to create income impact and success in 30 hours a week or less. As an expert time witch, I wrote The Magic of Bending Time in Your Sacred Business, which is a how-to manual for magical time management for multi-passionate women. And I live in Maine with my family and 3 pit bulls, reading, eating good food, being outdoors as much as possible. And this year, I actually closed my group programs. I still do one-on-one coaching and mentorship, but I closed my group programs to open and run the Barkyard, which has surpassed 6 figures in less than 6 months. And now my days are filled with dogs and women, which is absolutely lovely. So thank you again so much for having me here. And I popped my info in the chat.
Amazing. What could be better? Dogs and women.
Great.
Thank you so much, Britt. Melissa, how wonderful to have you here, sister. Feel free to introduce yourself in any way.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I'm getting over a cold, so I do feel a bit like my brain is not right here, but like right here. So I'll just say that, maybe for my own comfort, if nothing else. Um, I am the CEO of Alma Publishing, and I'm also just a woman, just like you guys. And I run an intimacy coaching business for the last 5 years. And I see that work as almost like being in the trenches with women. There's not a story that a woman could tell me now that would surprise me about the things that can happen in our relationships. And I just feel like it's given me such a massive perspective for who we all are as women, and how we're really all wanting the same things, how we're all one. So I just share all that because that's kind of the basis that I interact with the world from. I really love women, and I really love the divine feminine, and I'm super obsessed right now with Mary Magdalene and bees and beekeeping. So if there's any bee priestesses out there, I like definitely need community around bee priestesses. It's like a secret thing that there's not very many of us out there. Pertaining to why I'm here today, I'm the CEO of Alma Publishing, and I love the work that I've gotten to do. I've been the CEO for 4 months. My husband and I are acquiring the company right now from the founders, and just learning and expanding and growing so much as a person right now. But what we do and some of the things that I love is we pair publishing with marketing and business tools so that your book can actually make the difference that you want it to make in the world. And we also love to elevate disruptors and community leaders and podcast hosts, people who have a message and a mission to be able to bring their whole community together to create multi-author books and make money and have visibility. And so it's just such a rewarding, I like feel like I'm in fairy playland every day in my job. So that's what I'm here to bring today.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Beautiful. And let's see, did you put your contact
I'll
information
paste it
in
right
the
now.
chat? Perfect. Okay, great. And then some of you may notice, because I know that some of you know her, that Sean Reed Noto was originally scheduled to be part of this panel, and life happened and she ended up having to bow out. She's a dear sister and has been part of this community for many years. And so I would be remiss not to mention her because she sends all of her love. And she was so sorry that she had to step away, but we all know that sometimes life happens. So because she has been on one of these panels before, I actually had her Zoom chat information. So I will put it into the chat so that you have it, because I know some of you know her or know of her. And so you are welcome to connect with her. So we're just sending lots of love to Shanri and her life. And before we go any further, before we dive in, we take a moment to light candles. So if you happen to keep a candle next to your laptop or your workstation, great. You can go ahead and grab that. We'll light our candles together. If you don't, you can just find a conscious gesture, hand on your heart, or just take a moment to close your eyes and drop in. And we are stepping into circle space as women have since ancient times, shining our lights together and dropping in to receive deep wisdom and knowledge. And let's just take a moment to take a breath together, in and out. So grateful for this time with all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. All right. So, panelists, go ahead and take your phones out so that you can kind of time yourself. Ooh, just real quick before we go into our first panel question, while panelists are grabbing their phones, audience, go ahead and share in the chat your book vision. What is the dream book that you are writing? Or if you're not quite writing it, that you're visioning, or maybe you've already written a book, go ahead and share that in the chat. All right. And as you're writing that in the chat, panelists, I'm going to go ahead and ask our first question. Now, this first one is kind of a quickie round. You're going to get 2 minutes each, so you can set your phone for 2 minutes. And this is all about finally finishing your draft. So for this first round, we'll go in the same order: Jean, and then Britt, and then Melissa. Jean, how do you know when to stop? What is your most important tip about getting your book done? Any tips around how do you turn all the creativity and ideas into a finished work of art?
I love that question. And I think one of the things that was the most profound for me to learn when I went to a lot of writers' conferences was that the most prolific writers say the most important thing you can do to finish your book is to schedule time, consistent time, even if it's just once a week, that's all you have, to show up for yourself and the page, even if you don't feel like it. It's amazing when you don't really have a set schedule and you wait for inspiration, how suddenly chores seem really attractive. So I suggest like finding a community like what Jessica has created, and what, Shut Up and Write, which is what I belong to. And I host branches of that. I think that is what really helped me. Once I created a group in Ireland, I was new to the country. I didn't know anybody. It was the beginning of the pandemic. Having that writer space and the community of women to write with and support each other, there was no critiquing. So, I didn't feel scared of, being critiqued. Was really, really helpful to me. And I think knowing what kind of writer you are is super important to the process too. A pantser is somebody like me who can't just sit down and plot out a book. I have to just verbally vomit it out. It just comes out of me channeled. I think process, to actually honor that and maybe work with a proofreader or copy editor at the end of the process. If you're a plotter where you can map out the book, you may want to work with a developmental editor who can just kind of help make sure that that plan that you have before you start writing really makes sense from a commercial point of view. Ooh, right on time.
Perfect. How perfect. Beautiful, Jean. All right, Britt. Yes. How do you know when to stop? Any tips?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I will say that so the Magic of Bending Time was a little bit unique in that it was basically written from content and workshop. This Magic of Bending Time and Sacred Structure tool that I created was already a whole bunch of content that I had done workshops on and talked about and coached on for years. So the magic of the manuscript really came together from all this content that I already had. And then it was sort of a process of like coloring in the lines. And what was really helpful for me was one, the time blocking strategies and the time witchery that I've actually written the book about was one of the ways that even though I was so busy, I was able to block out time to really get the book done. But the other thing that really helped me, because I'm a big picture thinker, and again, sort of piggybacking on what was just said, understanding how you work best and what are the best circumstances in which for you to birth something. I'm a big picture thinker. Details and minutia are painful and tedious to me, and I am very bad at them. So for me, it was about understanding how to compile a team of people, my editors, the person who helped me get it published, and really be able to sort of get it all out and then put it in someone else's hands for them to help me once I lost perspective on exactly, at a certain point when you've read it 6 or 7 or 8 times, you're like, it's just gobbledygook at that point, and you just kind of have to hand it over to someone else. So I feel like there were almost midwives involved that helped me say, when I had no objectivity anymore, this is good, this is done, this is ready to go out into the world. So for me, it was about having teamwork and support in seeing the things that I could no longer see or was just never really good at seeing.
I love that. Beautiful. Yeah, it's like you don't have to do any of it alone.
Mhm.
Beautiful, beautiful. Melissa, how do you know when to stop? What is your tip or tips around getting the book done, turning all the ideas, etc., into a beautiful finished masterpiece? And this is like such the specialty of the work that you're doing. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think the most important thing, and maybe the pitfall that I see, especially women fall into so often, is we have to follow our own intuition and birth what needs to be birthed through us. And I see women often being like, yeah, but like, I don't have a strong skill set in writing, or I'm not a trained writer, or I haven't taken writing classes. I need to know how to get this book to look like this book, like someone else's book that's already out there. And actually, that's not what the world needs. The world doesn't need that book. And, especially nowadays with AI, it's like, if you really want your book to look like so-and-so's book, AI can make your book look like that. But is that really going to benefit the world? Is that really what needs to be birthed into the world? And so, people, even when people come to me personally as the CEO of the company, people will come and say, hey, can you give me feedback on my chapter? Can you give me feedback on my book? And I always get on a call with them, and I always say this: I don't give feedback. And do you know why? Because your feedback is the most important feedback that matters. And that's not to say we don't have editing teams and stuff that help support people, for sure. But what matters most is, do you reread what you wrote and feel something? Like, it doesn't matter if it looks the way that it's supposed to look, or what does that even mean? If you feel something every time you reread what you wrote, then your audience is going to feel something when they read it. And that's all that matters. I think that's the biggest key. We got to follow our intuition. And so I think probably one of the most simple practices that I point people back to all the time is knowing your yes, please, and no, thank you. Like, in every little thing, like, actually know your inner voice so that as you write, it's like, oh, yes, this is a yes, please. Like, you hear about these people who write a book in, 60 days or even 30 days. And it's just a matter of like following their yes, please. They just know their yes, please so clearly. They might not be a super gifted and skilled writer, and that's fine. That's what we have editors for. Just getting that message out.
Thank you so much. And that really segues perfectly into this next round. So this next round is like a lightning round. So just 1 minute each. And this is, what should women here look for in an editor or a cover designer, or share your thoughts around what team members you recommend the authors seek or hire. So editor, cover designer, team. We'll go in a little bit of a different order this time. Britt, I would love to get your thoughts on this.
Sure. I'm a big, as I imagine many of the women here are, I'm a big fan of sisterhood and community. So I really look for word of mouth and women that I love have worked with, and who have gotten results. I have 3 people to recommend who were really instrumental in getting my book out into the world. And I'm just going to put their websites in the chat box. Diana helped me publish or self-publish as a #1 Amazon bestseller, which is kind of cool. Nikki Starkatz-Shield has amazing writing programs for women like us, spiritually kind of inspired women writing. She has groups, and she also was my editor. And then I'll pop one more up there. The designer of the cover of the book, I don't know that she actually does this, but this was so amazing. And she's actually a graphic designer who does mostly websites, but she was brilliant. And I would say that one of the things that I loved about each of these women is that I felt really seen and understood them. And that's how they were able to carry this book to where it got. So I think really looking for people that you trust can recommend, and that you just really feel called to, that you feel it's, are your people, was really helpful for me. I definitely couldn't have done this with any sort of, bro marketing or male team. Like, it's a very woman-centered spiritual book, and I needed my team to be woman-centered and spiritual. So I'll drop the other name in there, but Diana and Nikki are up in the chat box now.
Thank you so much, Britt. Beautiful. Melissa, what are your thoughts? You have a minute to talk about team.
Yes, I would say the most important thing to look in this, and I'm just hitting my start button, is don't look for people who are super self-important. They're the worst to work with, because what matters in this is your message shining bright. And I see people all the time who hire somebody because, they're super flashy and they're really known well in their industry for editing or for graphic design. And then they want to do it their way. And so the author and the person are fighting the whole time. Like, what a nightmare. And even better, what we do is we've done that vetting for you. So if you've got somebody where you're going to a publisher, they're in the industry. So I would, look to, like, do you have a team? Do you have people that so you're not having to piece it together for yourself?
Gorgeous. So helpful. Thank you so much, Melissa. Jean, welcome. What are your thoughts on team, who to hire, what to look for?
Having trouble unmuting there. If I were to do it all over again, if you guys could learn from my mistakes, I would, if I were to do this again, I would hire an editor earlier in the process. Somebody who had some experience in my niche, and somebody who really loves the topic that I write about, and who really respected my voice. I did it a little bit differently because I wrote my book during the beginning of the pandemic, and the publishing world and the editing world was in chaos, and I really couldn't get an answer from people. So I just jumped in with both feet and just decided to birth the book. What I did do is I had people, a trusted circle of friends who were kind of like ideal clients, and I had them give me feedback on the book. But doing that later in the process was probably a lot more work than it should have been. So I would do that. I would get the help in advance.
That's so helpful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, so let me get my, oh, now I'm having a, let's see, dancing with technology here. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to dive into, so this is a little bit longer. So each of you will have 3 minutes to just kind of geek out. And we're going to start with Melissa. Melissa, you are a, we're gonna dive into publishing options, self-publishing, traditional publishing thoughts. So Melissa, you are a 3 times international best-selling author, and you're also an intimacy expert, and you are the CEO of Alma Publishing, an award-winning company that has elevated over 1,000 leaders and entrepreneurs to become best-selling authors. So as a publisher, what do you, and an author, what do you want women here to know and about publishing options? And also, if you touch on, and we'll go into this a little bit deeper later, but because some of the authors published by Alma have earned 5 figures, even 6 figures with their books. If there's anything you want to touch on around that as well. So publishing, self-publishing, money.
Yeah, this is so important and it can be so overwhelming. I know that when I first wanted to become a published author, I became so overwhelmed with the process that I stopped writing because I was like, well, I'm not going to spend all this time and pour my heart and soul into writing a book and then like publish it myself and have like 10 people read it. That seems like such a waste. And I felt really discouraged. And was so grateful when I actually found Alma, and I've been published now actually today it's 4 times through Alma, and we've got a book launch running today, but it doesn't have to be so hard. And what's beautiful is that the internet and Amazon have really flipped the publishing industry on their head. Where before you had to go through a huge application process with all these different traditional publishing houses and hope that they liked your work. And then they owned your work and told you how to write what you're passionate about. It's a mess in the traditional publishing space. Now you have options. You can self-publish, and you can also go through a publisher like us that helps you self-publish, but elevate yourself in the process. And I think probably the biggest difference between you just self-publishing and then going with a company like ours, where, you know, you can actually know how to utilize the self-publishing route to elevate what you're doing. That's the biggest difference. Is self-publishing, it's you'll probably figure out how to get the book up. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of little tricks and, you know, knowing the right formatting and different pieces. You can figure that all out. You can Google that. But knowing then how to use the book and leverage it to create the sales and visibility and impact that you want, that's the piece that people really get stumped on. And it's such a shame to see people publish and then their book just sit there. You know, it's had a few readers and they don't know what to do with it. And it's like, that's your heart and soul. Like, it shouldn't just sit there. I have a huge passion about that. And so, yeah, when we talk about, you know, a 6-figure launch or a 5-figure launch, or, you know, these pieces, we're actually not talking about book sales. We're talking about the sales that you generate on the back end of the book, and what that looks like, how you weave your book into the work that you're already doing, the offers that you already have. And I think in a little bit we've got another question where I'll be able to kind of lay out like exactly what that looks like and how it can be fairly simple to have a lucrative launch like that. But not if you don't know, not if you don't know how to do it. So that's where it can be really beneficial to have a publishing house.
Thank you so much. Yes, looking forward to going even deeper into that little, the money nugget in a little bit here. Thank you so much, Melissa. Jean, I'll have you go next. What are your thoughts about traditional publishing versus self-publishing? Anything in that arena? You have up to 3 minutes for this.
Gotcha. Well, I wish I had met Melissa when I was doing mine, because she sounds like she really cares about her authors, which is wonderful. I think I think there's no right or wrong way. I think you have to go with what feels right to you. And I think it also depends on your bigger purpose in writing the book. If your purpose is to be a bestseller, and it's not mutually exclusive, but if in general, I think, in my opinion, if your goal is to be a bestseller, probably would help to have people who are really experienced in that space, like a traditional publisher. My bigger why was to establish credibility, and to leverage for PR opportunities. And because today self-publishing doesn't have the stigma it used to, you absolutely can, without a publisher, you can actually publish your own material and promote it yourself, if you're willing to do that. So if you're willing to go to self-publishing, I recommend that if you want freedom, if you want to have control over your content, and if you feel like you have the bandwidth to market and promote it. I had to launch my business right away. It was during the pandemic. And so, and I really couldn't find the right people to help me. So I just jumped in, followed my intuition. And, I think that's really what this is all about, is following what feels right for you. If you want to find a traditional publisher, you just have to give yourself that time to find the right person. For me, I didn't have that. But I think it's really just depends on what really works for you. I was trying to go after Hay House. I thought really big. And I found that there was just a lot of closed doors. You can only really pitch to them if you won one of their writing contests. And I even tried Hay House UK, and they said, well, we love the concept of your book. We love your voice, but we don't think it will sell. We think that space is oversaturated. So if you're getting that kind of message, the great news is self-publishing allows you to put your information out there, put it out into the marketplace, and you absolutely can still promote the book. You just have to really believe in your product and just make sure that you get it out there. I think that's my time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Jean, in our next round, you're going to go deeper into exactly that, getting your book out there, PR, media, etc. So that's exciting. Awesome. Britt, the floor is yours to talk about your thoughts around self-publishing versus traditional publishing. Just a note, I'm going to turn my video off for a second, but I am here and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so I loved hearing what the other two panelists said. I was under the impression, once The Magic of Bending Time was really, a manuscript, that traditional publishing was not really available to me. From what I was hearing then, you really needed like a huge community. You needed a giant list. Like the big publishing houses really wanted people who were basically bringing a marketing avenue to their book. And I knew I didn't have that. I didn't have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram or TikTok or anything. And I also knew that this book is so personally important to me. The tools in it and the process that I teach in it are quite literally what took me from being homeless and on food stamps to having a life that I not only is sustainable and, where I have financial freedom, but where I wake up happy every morning. And over the years of teaching these tools to other women and seeing what an effect it had on their lives, I really wanted to get the book out there. And I didn't want to wait years. And, funny side fact, my mother is a published author, and I grew up watching her finish a book and then just create, hundreds of rejection letters from publishers as she tried to shop her book around, and, just have, bulletin boards full of rejection letter after rejection letter after rejection letter. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted the book out in the world. I wanted to be able to reach more women than just my client base with these tools that had helped my life, that had changed my life. So I opted for sort of like a home birth of the book because I just wanted to get it out there. And I had the people I had the people to help me get it out there. So I didn't try a traditional publishing route because I really just didn't think it was going to work. And I did know that I could immediately self-publish. And I'm also just kind of like I want it yesterday kind of person. So I like the idea of having control over the whole process. So that's kind of why I chose self-publishing instead. It was just so much more doable, and it was something that I could accomplish in the here and now versus writing the book and finishing the book and then fighting and fighting and fighting in my mind to see if I even get it out into the world.
Thank you so much for the powerful story and your perspective. Um, Audience, we've answered a few questions, dived into some different rabbit holes, and we're going to continue. So I'd love for you to just share in the chat any takeaway that has been shared so far, any aha, any nugget that's landing for you that you'll be taking with you. And feel free to type that into the chat. And I'm just loving all the hearts and loving support coming in. It was really beautiful. I was able to actually go in and read each of your answers for the books that you're birthing into the world. So we are in such amazing company today. What an incredible audience of wise women. So wise women, feel free to type into the chat if there's something that you're taking away, something that kind of landed in maybe a new way or a deeper way for you today. And go ahead and share that in the chat. I'm going to just take a little sip and we're going to dive right in to our next question here. Beautiful, wonderful, Connie. Awesome, Kristen. Beautiful. Yes. Okay, great. Good, good, good. I'm so excited to go back and read these. Okay, so panelists, we're going to go into another deep dive round, so 3 minutes each. And we're going to start with Jean because we're diving into PR and how to get your book into the hands of thousands of people. Jean, you are a dating and relationship coach, but you are also an author and a PR genius. You have entertained and inspired millions of people through TV, radio, and podcast interviews all over the world. Please talk about PR to get our books out to TV, media, and the masses.
I would love to. First of all, I think it's important to think about what media you think your ideal clients are consuming. Is it TV? Is it radio? Is it podcasts, magazines? And then, come up with a wish list and then of media that you want to approach. And then pay attention to the trends they care about. What are they writing about? And then you use your book as a credibility tool to chime in the conversation. So for example, just recently, I wanted to do another wave of PR around my book. So I put out a media pitch. I noticed there was a trend with the Barbie movie. A lot of women were breaking up with men who didn't like the movie. And so I injected myself into the conversation as a dating expert and saying, well, I have some concerns about this trend. Here's how to make the Barbie conversation a constructive one. So maybe you can actually discover that even if your partner didn't like the movie, he's still a great partner material. And media ate it up. They really liked it. And so I got interviews out of that and I was able to plug my book. I would also recommend, if you're very new to media and you don't feel confident yet, start with podcasts. A great service is Matchmaker FM. There are other podcast platforms where they match podcasters with podcast guests. There are also Facebook groups like Need a Guest, for example, where you can pitch yourself and your book, and then there are actual podcasters following it. If you want to get bigger attention, like national media, like for example, my book, I got a lot of national attention in Ireland by really paying attention to what the media covering dating were talking about. They were all talking about how people during the pandemic were really frustrated. They didn't like how they couldn't meet people in person. How are we going to find love if we can't meet in person? And so I got in there and I said, well, actually, the pandemic can be an advantage, because I recommend a slower approach or a different approach to dating that actually could be an advantage. And so people were like really astonished. So if you can find a point of view that is surprising, that goes against what people think, media will really pay attention to what you have to say, and they'll want to talk. And then you weave your book into how your book is part of the solution, if that makes sense. And so I just think it comes from really doing your homework and then really paying attention to the trends and connecting your book to that trend.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jean. And you mentioned these podcast resource, and I pasted that resource along with some others in the chat for the audience. So, Britt and Melissa, I'll be giving each of you a chance also to share your advice around PR or any ingredients that make for a successful launch. Melissa, I'll go ahead and have you go first for the have you go, and then Britt. So, Melissa, the floor is yours.
Awesome. I loved everything that Jean shared, and a lot of those things are things that I've been through as an author and don't understand the processes. So having a PR person in your pocket is really important. Like everything you were saying, I don't think that way and stuff. So it's so good to have a PR person in your pocket. But one thing that I will say, and a huge way that we help support our authors, and I feel like I want to share this in a different way than I would if I was speaking maybe to a more general audience, because I know many of you here are kind of witchy, if I can just make that assumption, and get intuition and get that our earth is shifting. It is so important to use community. Like, community is our future. Collaboration is our future. And so one of the major things that we teach our authors is, if you want to get your book into the right hands, perhaps it's less about getting it into the masses and it's more about getting it into the hands of the people who, like, you have soul contracts with, people who need your voice, need your story, need your activation and your codes. And then how do we do that? Well, we look to your community. We look around and we go, okay, where are 20 to 100 people that you can say, you know what, we have a similar way that we work with our people. We have similar people in the audience. There's not competition between the two of us. So I'm going to go to these people and ask, like, hey, would you interview me when my book launches? Would you be willing to email about my book? Can you write a review? Can you purchase? Can you share? Can you do this a couple of times for me? And I'll share a bit more about how that also weaves into a bigger process. But I mentioned that I'm obsessed with bees, and like, the bees are such massive teachers of this. A bee in a beehive, there could be anywhere from 10,000 to 60,000 bees in the hive at one time. And within 48 hours, they have touched each other, all of each other, no matter how many. Like, they are master connectors. And they do it like just with joy. They just like bump into each other. And I'm like, oh yeah, we need to learn from that. Like, the day and age of the feminist woman who has to shoulder it all alone is dead. Like, we can't actually do it alone.
Thank you so much for driving that home. Beautiful. Britt, what are your suggestions around beautiful launch or PR, getting the book out there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to piggyback on what Melissa said. I love it. I'm a huge fan of guerrilla marketing, grassroots marketing, building connections through community and building businesses and getting messages out into the universe through our community connections. And that was one of the things that I actually loved about self-publishing. I mean, would I have loved if St. Martin's Press picked up my book and got me on Oprah? hell yeah, of course I would have. But I can say for sure that I wouldn't have met the women that I relied on to help get my book out into the world if I had had somebody just sort of paving the path for me. So I think that one of the things, sort of backtrack a little bit, one of the reasons that I loved Diana, whose link I popped up here, she's the one who published the book for me, and she has this whole tagline about publishing your book as a #1 Amazon bestseller. One of the things that I loved about her, and when I interviewed her, really helped me to go with her, is that she has an entire launch plan. She has templates, she has systems, she has ways to spend months building up your community before you actually launch. So I was able to launch with a whole calendar of communities that I was speaking to, places that I was doing workshops, a whole list of people who were endorsing it, shouting it out. And she really gave me a system for doing that I would not have been able to know how to do myself, and all the templates to do it. So it really wasn't that much work. And I really loved that. But I think that it was really about finding the net of sisterhood that would help kind of doula the book, midwife and doula the book out into the world. Um, and that's kind of how I do things anyway. It's very much taking your sister's hand and figuring out how they'll shout you out, and then how you can shout them out. And I love that process. It feels very organic. Obviously not reaching as many people as if I were on Oprah once, but really getting to connect with and make connections to help get my little book baby out into the world. So I did like that part of self-publishing, and I really did. I was very lucky in that I had a big magical sisterhood community at that time. I mean, I still do, but especially at that time. And that really created a wave that the book was able to surf as it was released out into the world.
Mm. Thank you so much. Each of you is just like so speaking my language. Oh my gosh. Do you ever have that experience where you just kind of like fall in love with sisters that you already know? Like you just kind of fall in love a little deeper? I heart all of you. Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. So, in a moment, we are going to dive into how to actually make sales, how to actually make money with your book. So we're gonna dive deeper into that conversation. Before we do that, I have an invitation for you, sisters. I want you to feel totally supported through your journey of writing and launching your dream book. And I'd like to invite you to our next author inspiration class. And I'll tell you how you can attend it essentially for free so that you can continue to learn and have the community and the wisdom that you need to birth your beautiful book out into the world. So let me go ahead and go into that screen share here. So coming up next, our next author inspiration class is how to successfully launch and reach thousands with your best-selling book. So today we are diving into this, but this entire panel is dedicated to launching and getting your book out there. So if you're a first-time author, or if you've already published multiple books and you'd like to get them out to a wider audience, we're going to go deeper than we did today around getting your book to the bestseller lists and into the hands of thousands of adoring fans. So you can actually attend this for free as a member of our Rise Sisterhood, and also enjoy our transmissions writing retreats. You can come luxuriate in spacious time, to be in productive flow, to write while you are surrounded by some amazing on purpose sisters right here in the Rise Sisterhood community. These virtual retreats are such a nourishing day of writing and soulful creativity. And our writing retreats happen 6 times every year. And as a Rise Sisterhood member, you are welcome to attend as many as you like. And the next one is actually coming up in a couple of weeks. Rise Sisterhood also includes unlimited access to our mastermind circles. We call these our Queen's Council circles. So you can actually come to Circle as often as you like to do a 10-minute reading for us of your writing and get loving reflection and witness on your writing. You can also dial in your book marketing so that you have everything prepared to share your book out into the world for your book launch. And also, I'll just say that coming to Circle regularly is a really wonderful way to actually get your book project done because you do not have to figure it out alone. We can give you loving accountability and encourage you to keep moving forward. So you're welcome to come to our Queen's Council circles as often as you'd like for support and witness. And your Rise Sisterhood membership also includes monthly networking where you can heart connect with an entire community of heart-centered women leaders and authors who can become your book launch circle. And these connected women are the key to growing your following and reaching new audiences. These women who are all right here in this community, and Britt is here, is pictured here, Jean is here because they're part of the Rise Sisterhood community. These women achieved bestseller status with their books because they took the time to heart connect and gather a supportive circle of launch sisters to share their books widely out into the world. And that's what we want for you. The final piece is that as a member of Rise Sisterhood, we will give you publicity. When your book is published, we will share your book with our greater women's community of thousands of women. You will also be invited to present as a headliner at our 2023 Feminine Frequency Festival. Whether your book is published or not, as a Rise Sisterhood member, you get this special invitation. And this is held in front of our online community of 8,000 women. So membership for Rise Sisterhood is $333 per month. But today you can join Rise Sisterhood for $111 per month instead, because I am dedicated to making sure, sister, that you have the wisdom and the time you need to write your book, that you elevate your writing and your marketing message, network and build your book launch circle, and get visibility. And because you've joined us here live in community today, I'm going to gift you with an even deeper discount. I would like to invite you to join today for 50% off of your first month, which means you can join Rise Sisterhood today for $55. So please come join with us. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to join in the chat. Oh, beautiful, Britt. Thank you so much. That's so wonderful. So you can join Rise Sisterhood today for $55. The link is in the chat. And of course, if you're already a business owner, your membership is 100% tax deductible. So the link is there. Go ahead and join because this 50% discount is really just good for today for those of you that came and are here on this call right now. So that is my invitation for you. Please join us to continue learning. Rise Sisterhood is all about lifting each other higher, women lifting each other higher, and allowing yourself to be lifted higher. So this special deal expires when our Zoom session ends. You can go ahead and join right now. And I hope that this is a community that you choose to be a part of for years to come. All right. So, oh, how wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Lisa. Oh, that's so great. I really appreciate your loving support. It's such a blessing to be in community with you as well. All right, well, let's just take a moment to take a breath, and we are going to dive into how to actually make sales, make money with your book. So here we go. We've got Britt, we've got Jean, we've got Melissa. So I'm actually going to start with Britt for this round. And this round is also, we're going to go ahead and dive deep. So you've got 3 minutes each. Um, this is all about making sales and making money. And as we talked about before, first time authors especially often assume that when her book is finished, it's just going to kind of magically generate income. And it is possible to pour your blood, your sweat, and your tears into your book project only to earn very little income with your book, as Melissa was mentioning earlier. So, Britt, you are a best-selling author. You are also a business coach, and you have helped so many women build prosperity and build prosperous businesses. And you've also built multiple prosperous businesses, and you're the founder of one of the most successful animal rescue organizations in the country. So, Britt, I would love for you to share your ideas around how an author can make money through her book.
Yeah, I love this. So it's a little bit contrary to say, but I didn't write The Magic of Bending Time to make money. It was not a money maker. When I'm working with women, we sort of distinguish between community builders and platform creators and money makers. Magic of Bending Time the purpose was never to make a lot of money. It was to be of service, and it was to create a platform of expertise by which I am known as a time witch, and women understand that that's a skill that they can learn from me. That being said, the purpose of Magic of Bending Time in creating a platform is obviously to present a way that I can be of service to women, which is a moneymaker. So, and that's a really important thing about a book. I think it's not necessarily, I think in general, books are not huge money makers, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's more about creating a platform where we get to be visible in doing the magic that we do in the world. And the book is the platform for expressing that and really opening the door to that. So because of the Magic of Bending Time, obviously I've gotten coaching clients from that. I've been able to present it in many different ways to many different women, but this is just really something that I want to get out into the world. And so rather than thinking of how can I make money with my book, I find it more helpful to think, how can my book be of service in the world? Because that, when you think that way, the money is almost a side effect of that. And it also just energetically feels better to me to think, how can I and my skills and tools be of service versus how can I use this thing to make money? So making money has been a side effect of the book, but better than that has been hearing how much it's impacted women's lives and how it's changed their lives in terms of being able to have time for the things they love, being able to set up healthy boundaries, and learning how to use their own innate forms of magic to be their own kinds of magicians. That being said, once you have the frame of how can this book be of service in the world, it becomes very easy to think about, well, who needs this? Who needs this thing that I'm creating? Who needs this set of tools or this, idea? And then to go to those communities and offer yourself and offer your book to those communities. And that's been the way that I mean, this is a great example. This is a community in which the tools in this book are really pertinent and relevant, and I'm offering myself in being of service. And as a side result, maybe some of you will buy the book, but it's in looking for ways of being of service that I find I sell my book. Again, not the platform that something like Oprah or being featured in, New York Times would be, but it also changes the energy of how do I sell to how is this thing that I birthed able to be of service in the world. And that again is the wave that sort of carries it forward.
Thank you so much. Wonderful, Britt. Melissa, I know that your publishing program offers a very unique approach to prosperous launches. As we mentioned before, some of your authors have enjoyed 5 figures, even 6 figures with their book launches. Please share more of your wisdom with us.
Awesome. I have 3 minutes for this one.
Yes. Easier said than done.
Yes, exactly.
But you'll get a final geek out round soon, so you could say more at that
Okay, great.
time. Yeah.
It's not as hard as it seems to have a six-figure launch. Like, as with anything, if you set the money goal that you want to make, then you need to break it down. So if we just look at six figures, we're going to have $100,000 launch, and then you break it down. And I already mentioned, we're not talking about book sales. Um, Typically we support, I mean, our authors can set their book at whatever price they want, but why not get your book into as many hands as possible and then utilize all that excitement and enthusiasm to generate, rather than a $10 sale, you're looking at your program sales. So if you have an offer that's 10K and you have an offer that's 5K and you have an offer that's 1K, and then we break this down, right? Say you have 5 people at 10K, so there's half, and then you have 5 people at 5K. Then you're looking at the bulk of your sales needing to be around 25 people at 1K, and you're at 100K already. Then you've got some upsells built in there, right? Where your 1K people can upsell into your 5K program. And then you're utilizing your book to just generate the interest into the programs that you have. You have to recognize, like we've said before, I'm not going to do this alone. I'm going to go find 20 to 100 people who are going to be great referral partners, who don't do what I do, but work with the same kind of people, and our offers complement each other. And then, booking out the different ways that those people can help you in the different tiers and spheres that they're willing to help support. And so I have 20 people who are going to interview me over the next several months. They're going to email their communities. They're going to share on social media. And every single time that people are hearing from me, I'm talking about my offers. So I've got all this newly generated interest, and I'm talking about my offers. And I might bring them into a free gift so that I'm also, capturing their email and getting them to just lean in a little closer and get to know me. Every step that they take closer to me is another step closer to them actually working with me or purchasing one of my offers. So we're not going to make six figures on book sales. We're going to make six figures on the sales generated off the back end of the book. And it takes consistency. It's talking about your offers for the next 30, 60, 90 days. Usually what we do with a solo author is help them create a 3 to 12 month marketing plan that feels good to them. And that's my big emphasis, is like, don't commit to a big program that sucks your soul away, because you're not going to finish it. You're not going to stay committed. So, there's my timer. This is good. I'll just stop there.
What I'm really taking away, well, there's so many nuggets in there. I love the reframe of book sales versus using the book in service to the business and the offerings you already have. The other takeaway that was really amazing for me was this, just the reframe around I just said that reframe between the sales and this becoming a gateway to your offerings. But I also really love this piece around a spacious launch, because I think sometimes women that kind of make up their own launch give themselves such a short window, and then they wonder why they've gone into adrenal fatigue. And it's like, no, but if you give it room to breathe and you give it 6 months and it's all planned out and you get to arrive fully centered, I really love that. And I wish like every woman could hear that and feel that and understand that for whatever they're launching, because that is one of the main linchpins, is women do not give themselves enough time. They give themselves self-imposed deadlines that end up just like causing uh, so much stress. And oh my goodness, yeah, spaciousness, thank you so much, I just had to speak to that. Beautiful. um, all right, Jean, any thoughts, tips around money, books? Get in there, girl.
All right. Well, I love what everybody said. And I hope one of the big takeaways today is that there's not just one way to do it. There's not one way to approach this, that there's always all different ways you can use a book to make money. And I really hope that people don't feel like they have to compare themselves to how somebody else did it. I really encourage you to really tap into what your strengths are and take advantage of the path that feels exciting to you. Like if PR doesn't feel, traditional PR is exciting to me because that's how I made my living for many years and I love it. If that doesn't feel excited, do it a different way. And that's okay. You will get to where you need to be on your path. And I would also say if you do like PR like I do, one of the greatest things you could do is be your most unapologetically authentic self. That is what media want. They don't want you to be, sound like every other expert. They want you to be exactly yourself. Makes you more interesting as a guest, and that's why they invite you back. Like Melissa was saying, I use my book as a way to get the PR that gets people to call me for private coaching and to upsell coaching packages and workshops and things like that. And for me, it works really well. I just attended a conference where I got on stage for 3 different days, and I was able to really carefully craft my messaging in advance, which I recommend you do not only for speeches on somebody's stage, but also for media interviews. I was able to craft my message in such a way that it really let my people, the people I'm here to serve, they understood like this, that I was here for them and they were here for me. And it was just a great way to establish a connection. I remember being in mastermind circle in the Rise Sisterhood circle, and I was asking, like, how can I really connect with people? And I put in my speech, in my presentation, I actually put a QR code to my quiz, my Discover Your Biggest Love Block quiz, which I was able to capture their email addresses. And I also gave them a QR code for a free consultation. And it left them feeling like they got really valuable information, but they also got to dance with my energy. And I invited them back to my booth to get a book signing if they wanted to, or a book blessing. And they really loved the book blessing. I really loved, tapping into them, blessing the book. And they also got to dance with my energy and feel safe to call me and take that chance and maybe book a workshop or book a coaching call. I just invite you to look for ways, whatever you choose to do, whether it's, am I done, Jessica? I forgot to put my
No,
timer on.
I think you still have a few secs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no matter which path you choose, it could be podcast, TV, radio, speaking on other people's stages, online summits. The biggest tip I can give you is just really dial in your messaging, and so that you're using the words that your ideal audience would resonate with, and they recognize that they need your service. And that's where I think the money is, and also you're suiting your higher purpose, your bigger why of even doing this work.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Wonderful. So we've talked since the last audience share in the chat, we've talked about PR, book launches, making money with your book. So audience, please share in the chat. There's been another takeaway or any other takeaway that's been shared so far. You can go ahead and kind of anchor that in to the fabric of your being by mentioning it, writing it, being witnessed in what you're taking away. Feel free to take a moment to write that in the chat. While you do that, audience, panelists, we're going to go into our final geek out round. And this is also 3 minutes each. And this is really just like any final thoughts, advice, tips, if there's something you want to go into deeper, or something that you felt wasn't covered that could be. This is totally up to each of you to just geek out and enjoy. So you can go ahead and set your timers for 3 minutes for this one as well. And panelists, Jean, Britt, Melissa, go ahead and in this round, share your contact information again, so that when women save the chat, they've got it at the beginning, they've got it at the end. Audience, one of the through lines has been to not do it alone. And each of the women here is offering just amazing resources, either specifically towards getting your book out into the world in a meaningful way, or, other facets of your life, because we are first and foremost human beings, and spiritual beings who happen to be running businesses, who happen to be writing books. So please lean in. And I want to highly recommend that you reach out. Each of these women here is giving you their contact information. So please reach out, connect, be supported by Jean, by Britt, by Melissa. Okay. All right. So, and we're seeing some really great answers come into the chat around what you're taking with you, audience. Awesome takeaways and ahas. That's wonderful. So here we go. Let's go ahead and start with Melissa this time. Melissa, you've got a few minutes to just geek out.
Yeah, one piece that I haven't had a chance to talk about that I briefly touched on in the beginning is that one of the ways that we love to support people is people who are already leading a community, people who run a podcast, or people who are disruptors or movement leaders of some sort, where you have a community that's already excited about your message and mission. And you create a book about this, and you gather together 20 people from your community to do a multi-author book about this. And it's one of my favorite programs because our book partners, the people who partner with us and decide to lead one of these projects, actually has the potential to make $20,000 through this process. We pay them as each author is enrolled because we charge our authors to participate in the program. And so it's just a win-win on every corner. If you already have a community and you know that your community has stories in them and they want to share their stories and they feel like publishing is super big and scary and hard, they can invest $2,000 or $3,000 to participate in a book like this with you while you lead and create another level of rapport and intimacy with your community in a different way. It's just like a ping ping ping, everybody wins. And so that's a really fun thing that we do at AMA that I've been seeing a lot of other publishing companies do, and really elevating other people's messages and missions, and can be a great option if the idea of going through a publisher actually feels like it's too steep of a cost. You're maybe not ready. You haven't fully written your whole entire book yet anyway. And the idea of doing a chapter among all your best clients sounds funner. Then this is a really, really beautiful, viable option. And if that's something that you're interested in, of course, just reach out to me and I can give you more information about it. Let's see, I've got a whole nother minute here. I think that feels complete. I think that, I feel like I've been able to share a lot of, hopefully you can walk away from this and see the difference between, we talked about traditional publishing houses and we get that that's a whole circus over there. But then maybe what people don't realize is that there's self-publishing and then there's this hybrid option, which is what AMA Publishing represents, where you actually have tremendous support from experts, but you don't have to go through all the rigmarole of the traditional publishing. And you can get a lot, kind of further in your journey with a support like this.
Amazing, Melissa. Thank you. I just love this because you publish solo authors or authors to do, publish their own books, and they get these amazing results with their launches. But I love this collaborative piece because it would allow all of the writers involved to, if they've never published a book before, to learn the process of publishing and launching a book while held in like a collaborative container. I just love that. So kudos to you for creating that community community version. That's just so amazing. Wonderful. All right, Jean, let us, whatever you want to geek out on, the floor is yours.
Can I get witchy for a second?
Yeah, witchy girl, get it.
Go. So I think what I would like to say is a big piece of this, what gets in the way of people publishing their book, is imposter syndrome or fear of visibility. And it may not look like it now, but I really, really struggled with this. I used to have a soul-crushing fear of public speaking. And I think if you are struggling with this in any way, I think it's really important to lean into the bigger reason why you're doing this and keep remembering the people who are out there who really need to hear your message. And ask for signs from the universe, and the universe will give it to you. And this is the mystical part. When I first launched my book and I was getting all this national attention, I suddenly panicked because I suddenly had what I wanted and I was suddenly getting a lot of attention, and it felt very, very scary. And I asked for a sign. I said, this feels really hard. This feels really terrifying. Is this really what I should be doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I started to panic. So I prayed for a sign. And I was in the middle of rural Ireland in the middle of the night, and I suddenly heard a knock at my door. And on the other side of the door was a pheasant. I don't know if you know pheasants, but they're very, very colorful and they're very shy birds. They don't knock on people's doors. But I noticed that the pheasant was looking through the door at me kind of like this. And it was looking at me, and I felt like it was, I don't know if you follow spirit animals or animal totems or whatever, but it was really staring at me. I felt like it was there for me. And I looked it up, and it said that pheasant shows up to let you know not to be afraid to strut your colors on the stage. And so that really actually, that moment actually gave me courage. And whether it's, getting support from friends who really love and nourish your work, or praying for signs, joining a community that really like this, that really celebrates and elevates you, just don't let any kind of imposter syndrome or fear of visibility scare you away from the people who really need to hear you. That's it for me. Signing out.
Oh, yeah. Mic drop. Beautiful. Britt, the floor is yours. We would love your geek out.
So one of the things that I want to offer to each of you is that whatever it is that you are working to put out into the world, there are people, many, many, many people who are waiting to hear what you have to say, who are needing to learn what you have to teach, who are waiting for a sign, and your book or whatever it is that you're putting out into the world will be that sign for them, or will be a sign for them. And I say that because of what Jean just sort of mentioned, where, it can be really daunting. The process is daunting. Visibility is daunting. There's so many aspects of getting your message out into the world in general that can create an urge to get underneath your bed. And one of the things that's always helped me is remembering that people are waiting for exactly what you have to offer. And many of them are suffering without having it. And that's part of the being in service. That's part of the movement from how do I sell this to how do I offer this thing that I have, this magic that I create to other people. So that's the first thing that I really want to say. I think that that's really, really important to remember. I don't know if you guys can hear the hound that is outside my office door. She is baying, and I am sorry if you can hear it. She's waiting for her play group. I'm at the doggy daycare. Apologies if you can. The other thing that I want to say is that, there's a reason that we don't go off into a field to have a baby under a bush by ourselves. And putting your message out into the world, writing your book, getting your manuscript out there, getting your magic into the world, it is so very much like having a baby, in that you need a village around you. This is an amazing village. I can't recommend it enough if you're not part of Jessica's circle. But you need your community. You need your midwife, your doulas. You need the people who figuratively and literally bring you meals to put in the freezer. Don't try to do any of this by yourself. That's not how we work as a species. It's especially not how women work. We do things in community. We need our village. So whether that's, your best friend, an editor, a publishing company, which sounds amazing, all of those are pieces of how your magic gets carried into the world. And I really, really just want to urge you to find your village and create from the foothold that village gives you. I think that's it. all I can really think about is the hound baying outside of this office. So
And it's not that
thank
loud.
you.
It's very quiet over here. So
So loud in here. This is why people don't let hounds move into apartment buildings. I'm so grateful for the chance to be here. It's been amazing being a part of this panel and this collaborative brilliance. And I just really want it to remind you that there is magic in community, and that when you're working in community, you're never having to carry everything by yourself. So thank you again, Jessica, for having me.
So grateful. Yeah, so grateful. Wow, what a beautiful circle this has been. We are make sure to, I think, Britt, go ahead and put your contact information in the chat again, because I know that you had like a refreshed link that you're sharing so that they'll kind of get all of that together. And then Melissa and Jean, I see that you have reshared yours. I will also send an email out to all of you within the next few days with some of the resources that were shared, contact information as well, sisters. But you can grab whatever you need from the chat here before you leave. Um, we weren't initially going to do a Q&A, and we really just have like 4 or 5 more minutes, but there was a question that came through the chat that was more technical around audiobooks, and so I thought, well, let's just open it up if any of you have a resource around audiobooks, because that is a world I know nothing about. So I don't know. I think Britt said she didn't. I see Jean's shaking her head no. Melissa, in your publishing house world, is there like a website or someone to point to that might be?
What's funny about me is I have a great team, and that's the techie side. So it's something that we help our authors with. We never do multi-author books as audiobooks because that's way too many stories. It's too many different, no. But our solo author books, if they want that, it is something we do, but I don't know all the things. So I'm so sorry I can't offer the platforms and stuff like that. I don't have all of I have a team and they're great at it.
Awesome. We'll leave it at that. Thank you, Kimberly Sherry, for your question. We could answer one question if there's a woman here that can just bullet a quick question and then we can dive in. Feel free to raise your hand. We may have covered it all. Christine, are you wanting to raise your hand? Was that you trying to? Oh, no. Okay. I'm just kind of leaning in to read the audience. Any questions? Suzanne, is it Suzanne? Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself. Oh, you can't unmute. Hold on. Here we go. I think you can now. Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this has been wonderful. This might not be the right form because this is how to finish your book. And I'm just wondering if any of you have advice on how to break through so much intimidation about how to start a book, how to value your own idea and not dismiss it, because I've had so many experiences where I've had an idea and then I dismiss it. And then a couple of years later, I see it's a book by somebody else. So, yeah.
Such a great question. Yeah. Let's open it up to any of you that feel called to unmute and answer Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne.
I've got something around this. I think it's a good time to talk about the witch wound. And just by nod of head, do you know what that is? Okay, perfect. Okay.
No, but it sounds right on.
This has been life-changing for me to learn about this. I have a Christian background. I'm like, coming out of my shell in every possible way has felt like death. And that's what the witch wound is. Like all of us, it doesn't matter where you come from on the planet, we have some aspect in our ancestral lineage where women were persecuted, burned, ostracized, every horrible thing you can imagine for shining. And that was whether, you were just using your voice, or you were connected to herbs and to the earth, or you were connected to your spiritual gifts. And so like, I feel like my whole life, and it makes me emotional, like learning the term the witch wound and even feeling like I could explore what it meant, because even the idea of exploring that I could have a witch wound felt like something too witchy. Like it was scary. It has changed my world, because I realized that all the things that like kept me swallowing my tongue, or kept me holding back, or kept me keeping small in the cage, weren't from me. They actually were never from me. They're like built into my DNA. And like recognizing that my ancestors are like crying from the dust, like do the thing that we couldn't do. Like it's everything, you know? It's everything. So I'm even like currently in a faith transition. Our family is like moving out of the church that we have thought we were going to raise our family in, and I feel like it's just all related. Like I've got this great mentor right now, and she has a PhD in witch studies. And the reason she did that is because that's the only women's history that, like, that's our biggest bulk of women's history, was women who were on trial as witches, because it was written by men. And so they actually wrote it down because they were on trial. But one of the main things, and hers was primarily in Scotland, but one of the main things that she saw over and over again were women who just were successful. It was like, oh, well, she had a cow at the same time we had a cow, and her cow's producing more milk, so she probably cursed ours, and that's why hers is doing so well. She's a witch, and boom, that's it. And then I look at like, even if my ancestors weren't burned, they were living in that climate, like always afraid to shine. So I don't know. For me, it lit a fire that was like, oh, hell no. And that's what it took for me.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I just am seeing nods from Jean and Britt. I wanted to actually step in and speak to this, like another side of the coin, because I think that is like so at the root. And I also just wanted to kind of like zoom out to this moment that we're in right now, that I know that you live, Melissa, and Jean, you live, and Britt, you live, because I know all of you. This like living in this reality, like truly, that I truly feel with every fiber of my being, that there is no such thing as competition. That competition is a construct, and it's tied to what Melissa's talking about. It's a construct that is like in the imagination. And when you're able to unplug from that construct, that like, oh, she's a wellness practitioner, I'm a wellness practitioner, oh, she created a program around this, oh, I wanted to create like, when you are able to unplug from the paradigm of competition into a paradigm of how can we link arms and maybe move forward together, or even just like uh just tapping into the belief that there is no competition, then it starts to matter a little bit less when those like synchronicities in other women's worlds open up. I can't tell you how many times I have watched in my own women's community a woman or myself birth something new, and at the exact same time in the exact same month someone else birthed someone with the exact same name and the exact same topic. That's happened to me personally maybe like 5 or 6 times over the last decade. And and it's just something that I'm like, oh, the way I hold it now, before it was like, oh my gosh, she's creating a thing, there's competition, like, oh, it's going to take away from what I'm creating. And I've watched other women go into that, like, but I think now the way I'm like, oh, we are tapping into something really true. Like we are both, or we are all tapping into something that needs to come forth in the world. And I really trust that she has her audience and her women. I have my audience and my women, and I have the perfect voice and space to bring my thing through, and she has the perfect voice and space to bring her thing through. And I even will sometimes reach out and say, hey girl, I see what you're creating and it's awesome, like how can we weave together? And some really powerful lifelong business friendships have come out of that, removing the competition piece and being like, I see you, I see what you created, and it's lighting a fire under me to rise up even higher. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Oh, I got chills so many times during this conversation. Jean, Melissa, Britt, I know your time is so valuable. Thank you so much. Blessings, blessings, audience. I know that you are women who spin many plates and weave many worlds, and I also so appreciate you for your time. and hope you're stepping into a nourishing weekend of renewal and blessings. Thank you. Thank you.